and welcome to ShareSync Talks. Today we are joined by a very special guest. Not only is she an alumni of Coventry University, not only has she got 23.8 thousand subscribers on YouTube, we have Katie Robinson here with us at ShareSync Talks.
Thank you for having me.
So Katie, you're an alumni of Coventry University. You're working in sustainable fashion and getting the message out as well for sustainable fashion. You're a journalist and a content creator. And we've had the pleasure of working together in the past as well, so it's been great.
Like you said, I went to Coventry for my journalism degree and we had the pleasure of working together there, which was some of my first introductions to journalism and interviewing people, which is now what I do quite a lot in my work. I do a lot of work talking about sustainable fashion, overconsumption and greenwashing in the industry, which is really prevalent in fashion. And yeah, my main goal on my YouTube is to make sustainable fashion more accessible to people, because I feel like brands try to trick us into thinking that it's a lot more complex than it is, so they can get away with not doing as much as they should. So yeah, that's my main work, really.
Nice. And you talked a bit about the interviewing process, especially from your background as a journalist as well. Nowadays, you have to be a bit of everything as a media practitioner.
Yeah.
Journalist, content creator, video editor, social media manager. Like, can you talk a bit about how you manage all of those areas, especially with your work on YouTube, but also how you transfer that to other platforms as well?
Like you said, like you do have to be absolutely everywhere and do all of the roles, and it can be quite daunting. And I think I got into a kind of routine when I first started doing my YouTube channels of like just talking to camera and even being scared to do that, and not wanting to like film myself. And certainly I didn't want to interview anyone else because it feels like a lot. I mean, obviously setting up the camera angles and the audio and the lighting is really daunting. And especially when you're like wholly responsible for the whole operation and like taking people through the whole process as an interviewee, it can feel like quite a lot. But honestly, I think you just have to go for it, is like the advice I heard other people say to me, and like I would say to other people, is just do it. Like, not to be a Nike advert, but
Yeah, definitely. And what can you share a bit about the most recent projects that you've been working on at the moment?
Yeah, so recently I was speaking to the CEO of Buy Rotation, Ishita Cabra Davis. Do you know Buy Rotation? It's like a rental company.
No.
Yeah, no, it's quite big now, basically rental fashion and making, that kind of party wear accessible if you don't want to buy it, which is a really important part of sustainable fashion, allowing people to not have to buy something. So I was interviewing her as part of a bigger video around the ethics of fashion retail. And that was really exciting because as a customer of Buy Rotation myself, it did feel kind of like a pinch me moment of interviewing the CEO. And yeah, that was really lovely.
Oh, wow. And can we see that interview soon? Is that going to be out?
Yeah. So that's out on my YouTube, the whole video. And then I released the podcast. Sorry, I released the whole interview as a podcast because I feel like that's quite an interesting way of splitting content into different formats. I don't know if you've like consumed content like that, but I tend to think that YouTube videos don't really lend themselves to much longer form podcast content just on my channel. So it's nice to kind of like split that up into little snippets on YouTube and then a longer podcast to like take on your hot girl walk or, take on your workout video.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever I go onto your YouTube page, which I'm on right now, by the way, I can always see within literally hours and within 24 hours of you publishing your content, there's already like 67,000 views, 15,000 views just 11 days ago. I think audience and viewing and engagement is such a huge part of when we post our content online. Do you find that you look at the audience's reaction and maybe shape the content through the audience, the lens of the audience almost? Or
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the biggest influences of that on my channel is I got a lot of comments on some of my earlier videos that were discussing the issues in fashion, saying like, this is kind of making me a bit depressed, or it feels like there's not much hope in the industry. And I really don't want people to feel like that. And I don't feel like that myself,
Yeah.
because I see a lot of hope in sustainable fashion just from, you know, consuming other kind of content.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really wanted to do was bring some of that to my channel, and it's made me highlight some positive stories more, or like leave actionable tips at the end of my videos. If I am talking about a problem, I always try to say like, okay, but here's what you can do about it. You can sign this petition, you can, you know, cut down your own clothing consumption.
You give them the call to action at the end of your videos. It's like, or like a bit of advice at the end of the videos that you create and deploy online, and not just YouTube, but TikTok and Instagram as well.
Yeah.
It's also making the audience feel a bit like, okay, if I just do that one thing, like per week or per month, it contributes
Yeah.
and it helps towards sustainable fashion. Which is really useful, and you've got such a great message to like put out onto these platforms to your audience as well. So do
You
you
make me blush.
well, I don't base it though, but it's so good have like maintaining an audience as well.
Is really hard. Yeah.
mm, mm,
I think there's like a balance almost on YouTube of making videos for a new audience and making videos for the audience you already have. And I think like that's quite a not something people talk about. Sorry,
yeah,
that's not something people talk about quite as much. I mean, you can constantly be getting new viewers, but if you're not moving the subject along and giving more value to the people that have already subscribed, I don't feel like that's going to result in building
mm,
your audience.
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. So it's always that constant creating new ideas, but then maintaining the same message, and
Yeah.
getting your audience to continue to engage as well. Do you have any top tips for our media communications and journalism students who might be looking to create content in a similar way? Or we've got a few out at the minute who are creating their own podcasts, for example, and trying to ramp up that audience engagement. I don't know if you've got any advice for them.
One of the most talked about tips, but is, you know, you cannot fault it, is just consistency. Like at one point I was making videos, and I know you said like I've got thousands of views now, which, you know, some of them do, but I was making videos for like hundreds of people, and it'd be like 300 people would view my story, and that would be like a great achievement for me. It'd be like, I'm not talking to one person.
Yeah.
And even now, like some of my videos don't do that well, but I'm still proud of them. And I feel like that's another like tip just to keep yourself going when you feel like no one's listening, is like, if you're happy with what you've created, if you would want to watch it,
Yeah.
then you should be proud of it. Like that's who you should be creating content for, is yourself and your self-interest. And if you're not creating content that you want to watch, then maybe you need to step back and think about why you don't want to watch it, or whether you need to pivot your strategy into something that you feel like you would want to watch, like almost fill the gap in the market that you don't think is being filled right now. Does that make sense?
Definitely, no, and it also shows that in when you record and film and talk to camera, you can see that passion and enjoy. You're enjoying recording this, right? And same with when we do our ShareSync talks or our ShareSync podcast with our students. It's so enjoyable, and we sometimes we don't come with an agenda. We just like, okay, what we're going to record today, and then it carries on, which is good. But also, yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to plan as well.
I think it shows that kind of like authenticity and genuineness that people are really craving online right now. I feel
Yeah,
like with the flood of everything being like sponsored content and like hitting the algorithm stuff, just talking about what you want to talk about will set you apart from like 90% of what's online, and, you know,
yeah,
probably result in success because people can see you're interested.
yeah. Influencers online, particularly on Instagram, who say that they are sustainable fashion ambassadors or influencers for sustainable fashion. Um,
Mm.
can you see sometimes past that, if how authentic they can be? Because perhaps some of them genuinely are, but I find
Mm.
when some of them might be mis-selling or just maybe jumping on the bandwagon to be like get their followers up or something like that, which is for the wrong reasons.
When you said that, what came to mind was the overconsumption trend and people trying to like pivot that into underconsumption trend, and like how so many influencers were trying to jump on that bandwagon because it was what was being talked about, and then people were literally replying in their comments saying like, okay, this is great, but it doesn't fit with what you were talking about last week about this must have product and stuff. It's like, if people could literally calling you out because they can see that you're not being genuine, I don't know what that's going to say about you and your branding and your authenticity. Like, people should have room to like grow and, you know, change their mind about stuff. That's 100% valid. Like, if someone was creating that kind of content up to a point and then the underconsumption trend made them change their mind, then that's great. Like, 100% pivot to that. But you can't then switch back when everyone starts talking like less about underconsumption and goes on to the next trend. Like, you can't, that people are going to notice that you're being so inconsistent, and it's just going to ruin your brand.
Yeah. So would you say definitely, like, for our current students and prospective students and the audience watching this, maybe a top tip would be to keep that consistency in whatever, you know, whatever content they're talking about or creating, that messaging behind the brand, it needs to be authentic and maintain that consistency.
Yeah, I think just being as authentic and as like genuine as possible, and not trying to like be an influencer. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, it's so hard because if it is your job, then you have to call yourself an influencer, but acting like you're not is probably the best way to maintain that audience and authenticity. I mean, I think it's quite hard for me because I've been approached so many times. Like, I get all the like junk messaging of, can you sell this on your channel from our Amazon storefront and stuff? And it's like, okay, I have to turn down the money because I know that it doesn't fit with my brand. And obviously doing that without like a brand manager and stuff, it's hard to know what to turn down, what to not. But I guess my general rule of thumb is, if I wouldn't buy this myself, like without being gifted it, then I'm not going to present it on my channel. Like, and I think that's quite an easy way to just follow. Like, I don't think it's hard to stick to your guns and stick to your authenticity. Like, but then again, no, I'm gonna leave it at that. I think if you are serious about doing it long term, it's not worth it doing like a short-term cash grab just to wreck your image. Like, it's so hard. Like, there's no playbook to being an influencer, and people are just expected to like make the right decisions all the time. But that's what works for me.
It goes back to that conversation where we started this whole ShareSync talk about that idea of you have to be everything from content manager, videographer, but also you just said about your photography of it as well. So just like content creation and the imagery. Already you have to just think about all those different things, and it's so
and I feel like there's such an expectation to create like really highly aesthetic content, especially on Instagram. I don't know if you and like TikTok and like get like the perfect angle and the perfect like mood lighting and stuff. I really get stressed with that kind of stuff, and generally I try not to try do it because it does stress me so much. It is this massive expectation. Something I'm doing that's quite fun recently is trying to do more like short form documentaries. You know, like obviously short form in the sense that they're not going to be hour-long productions like you'd see on BBC, but they're more like YouTube video timings, like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm trying to like go into areas of the sustainable fashion industry and like show a behind the scenes look at how that's kind of working. And I feel like there's kind of a need there to let people look into the industry, which is always quite like quiet and closed off, and kind of like show how things are done. Like, for example, I'm going to be working with a sustainable fashion handbag company that has quite high prices, but it creates beautiful work. And I really want to go in and like kind of show the process of how they're making it and how they, I guess, how and why they price their bags at the point they do, and like, you know, how it differs from a fast fashion company that's making these mass scale, and how they can keep their prices low. And I guess, that's something I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully can pull off.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Oh, please send the link so we can share it across as well.
Yeah.
Watch.
Again, it's one of those like daunting projects where I don't know what I need to do until I start doing it, and then I figure out that I need to shoot way more B-roll than I thought I needed to, and I need
Yeah,
to think about lighting when I don't really
yeah.
often do that. Like, yeah, it's quite fun. It's kind of taking me back to my journalism days and like as media days. So yeah, it's nice. Feel like I'm using my degree.
Yeah, no, definitely. All those different skills, like transferable skills, as we call them, with us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been doing YouTube quite seriously for like a year now. And yeah, I've had quite a lot of growth, I'd say. Like I have surpassed my yearly goal in
Nice,
subscribers. So
nice.
yeah, so I'm really happy with how it's gone so far. And I'm happy to think about how it's going to go and how I can keep evolving the channel so it doesn't feel stale. I think is a really important thing to think about if you want to do social media, not just get stuck in a rut and stuck in like a algorithm rut. I feel if you
Yeah,
keep making the same content, then they're not going to reward you if you go outside of it,
yeah.
which
You have to like
yeah.
break the algorithm a little bit and try and
Yeah.
like, because otherwise, either you won't be seen or you'll be seen, and then but it'll be just by your followers, and like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really difficult, isn't it? Like, keep continuing.
Yeah.
And
I've seen people online talk about it that maybe do really specific content like get ready with me's and stuff,
oh
and they
yeah,
just don't want to post anything else because they think the algorithm's going to like punish them.
yeah.
But also that would get really stale for your subscribers too. So I just don't want to lock myself in a box like that. And I think
No, no.
everyone should be thinking.
And what does the future look like for Katie Robinson? What's your work now? Looking ahead.
I have some ideas. I don't know. Again, I want to start looking at short form documentaries and like
Yeah,
going into the fashion industry. I'd love to maybe get published in like online media, which is still an accomplishment I haven't got despite pitching a couple of times to brands. Um, so I guess I'm kind of trying to like make a name for myself in the sustainable fashion industry and then hoping like things come to me, which a couple of things have, to be fair. Like I've had some amazing opportunities. I got sent to Fashion Week in Copenhagen at the beginning of this
amazing.
year. Yeah, like I feel like I don't know what's coming. Almost it's like some opportunities will pop up and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing until
Yeah.
then, which is nice.
So Katie, recently you've posted a video that's titled "Is this the end of the influencer era?" So this is really interesting for our current students, particularly our MA students as well. We're looking at authenticity. Would you be able to talk to us a bit about the video itself, and a little bit about your views on it as well?
Yeah. I think it was a really fun video for me to make because genuinely I didn't really have an answer when I started making and at least researching the video because I feel honestly influencers have become such a massive part of our culture now that they seem like they could never go out of style. Like, marketing now revolves around the
Absolutely, they're challenging traditional forms of marketing, the selfie culture, the that kind of gestures of a selfie as well, and like creation.
and also they're challenging our like the way we consume media too. I mean, so many of us go to TikTok now or Instagram to get our news rather than, watching the news online, watching the news on the TV. And, it's hard when influencers, I say influencers, not content creators, have become so closely linked with overconsumption. And now that I guess in my line of work, overconsumption is something that is being challenged daily, something that a lot of people are now reevaluating how it works with them. And I guess that was like a lot of what I talked about in the video of how influencers are going to be able to adapt and remain genuine
Yeah.
with their audience
Mm-hmm.
whilst also maintaining their lifestyle and
Yeah.
maintaining this push for products that they seem to have fallen back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that's really interesting, like that no one really knows how that's going to play out.
Yeah. And just like this change in our spending habits, like what we buy online,
Yeah.
and going back to that idea of the algorithms, like if you're looking, like I was looking for some new trainers the other day, and I'm constantly on my Instagram, it's just trainers, like
Yeah.
making me, and I
Yeah.
still haven't bought them, but it's that making you like okay, oh, it's there. I'll just, in the convenience of it as well.
Yeah,
Um, and something that I find really interesting, and maybe we really should do another video on this, just on influencers, is how influencers challenge forms of intimacy. So things like get ready with me videos, like from the like barely there underwear to a fully formed outfit on camera, or filming in our bedrooms,
yeah,
which is obviously a space which is very private, but it's publishing on a platform that's for the public audience on YouTube or Instagram. So I found
definitely.
that really interesting.
I think the whole idea of like parasocial relationships and our relationships with our online personas is going to be studied like 20 years down the line as quite damaging.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because yeah, like you say, like allowing thousands of people to view the inside of your home and view you in your
Mm.
underwear, and that being public media now forever is quite,
It's kind of just accepted, right? It's just kind of
yeah,
like, oh, it's another woman or man, because men are doing get ready with me videos or do what you love videos as well,
yeah.
in their home, barely dressed, and it's kind of just accepted as, no, that's fine.
Yeah. And recently I saw online there was this like kind of online discourse about how delivery drivers have like lost all rights to their privacy now because people have become so okay with posting like Ring doorbell videos to their TikTok where, you know, people are delivering their packages
Oh yeah,
and
oh my god,
they just think that's like okay to post their face and, you know,
yeah,
potentially identifying details. Like I think that's so interesting, like,
yeah, yeah.
but it's not considered.
Not only of where they live, but even just of the delivery persons as well.
Yeah, and the
Right.
person that's not consenting whatsoever to
Yeah.
being posted to people's pages, like,
Well, it's a big part of what we do on the media communications degree and with journalism as well, is that media ethics and being able
yeah.
to consider it and thinking, trying to future proof our students as well. As you know, as an alumni at Cov Uni,
I
um,
have to say, I've used my media and ethics and law
yeah,
training quite a bit. So I know it's like a slog to get through, but it's actually so useful, and I'm so happy that I took it seriously. So
yeah.
yeah, that's for your students.
Thank you. Listen up, students. Thank you, Katie Robinson. Thank you so much for joining us here on ShareSync. Thank you. Katie, just quickly to wrap up our ShareSync talks, something on our ShareSync talks and ShareSync podcast is we ask our guests what are they listening to or watching or reading right now that they want to share on our ShareSync playlist.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've been listening to a lot of Noah Khan, because I think he's perfect for autumn and just really relaxing. Given everything that's going on, it's really nice to unplug with him. Oh, and while I was in Norway, I was reading the book Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which
Oh,
was perfect for the setting, just like really autumny. And I love getting into media that's very seasonal.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I've been reading and listening to.
Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you so much for being on ShareSync Talks.
Thank you for having me.